Dallas had no logical reason to become a major metropolis. It was a flat, landlocked prairie with no natural harbor or deepwater port. But in the late 19th century, the iron logic of the railroad overrode the geography of the Earth, transforming a dusty outpost into the digital heart of North Texas. Welcome to Binary BC, where we render the lost maps of the past into high-definition reality. Subscribe to Binary BC now to see how we use AI to reconstruct the frontier before it was paved over by history. Our data stream begins on July 8, 1908. The Trinity River is reminding the inhabitants of Dallas why this land was once considered a volatile flood zone. The river has broken its banks, surging into low-lying neighborhoods and turning streets into muddy canals. Through our AI reconstruction, we see the railroad bridge cutting across the swollen torrent, its tracks nearly submerged by the rising tide. Houses and warehouses sit feet deep in sludge. This specific disaster claimed 5 lives and caused millions in damage, serving as the final catalyst for the city to move the river itself. Within a few years, Dallas would begin the massive engineering project of the levee system, a digital-like reconfiguration of nature to protect its commercial interests. Now, we rewind the rendering to Dallas in 1872. The urban grid spreads out from the Trinity River like a mathematical equation applied to an empty prairie. Most of these blocks are still vacant dirt lots, waiting for the binary code of architecture to fill them in. The population is a mere 3,000 people, yet the street pattern is already ambitious, revealing the intent of the early city planners. You can see the courthouse square at the center, the anchor point for the social and legal life of the frontier. The railroads haven't arrived yet, but the momentum is building. In just 12 months, the Houston and Texas Central Line will roll into town, and the outpost will begin its transformation into a regional superpower. Subscribe to Binary BC as we track this rapid urban expansion. By 1907, Main Street is sitting in the shadow of a new era. The Praetorian Building looms 15 stories over the city, the very first skyscraper in the history of Texas. At street level, the Empire Theater draws massive crowds, and the data shows a chaotic transition of technology, horse-drawn carriages sharing the unpaved road with the first combustion engine automobiles. Flags hang from the storefronts, celebrating a city that has surged to nearly 80,000 people in just 35 years. The frontier town has been overwritten. This is now a modern American city pushing vertically into the clouds. The ascent of Main Street continues as taller neighbors begin to surround the Praetorian. We see the Colonial Theater at 352 Main, bringing the spectacle of vaudeville to the downtown crowds. In this high-growth era, buildings are treated like temporary files. They are erected, serve a purpose, and are then deleted and replaced by taller, more efficient structures. Streetcar tracks now bisect the roads, and a growing web of telephone wires creates a copper canopy overhead. Dallas is learning the art of the vertical climb, packing more data and more people into less horizontal space. But before the skyscrapers, there was a dream of a communal utopia. In the early 1850s, a group of European intellectuals led by the French philosopher Victor Considerant attempted to build a colony called La Réunion just west of Dallas. Considerant saw the Texas prairie as the perfect canvas for a socialist commune. Hundreds of settlers from Belgium and France sailed across the Atlantic to join the project. While the colony collapsed after only 3 years due to poor agricultural planning, the settlers themselves did not leave. They moved into Dallas, bringing with them a specialized software of skills the frontier desperately needed. Architects, musicians, brewers, and master craftsmen, La Réunion failed as a settlement, but it provided the cultural foundation for the future city. Our AI now processes a visionary plan from the early 20th century. It shows the Trinity River tamed and straightened, flowing in perfect geometric curves through a city modeled after Paris. Wide boulevards and lush parks line the banks in an orderly vision of controlled nature. For decades, these grand designs circulated through the offices of city boosters, but the Trinity proved difficult to program. The river continued to flood, and the city sprawled in messy, organic directions. Most of these ambitious Parisian dreams stayed on paper, but they formed the intellectual blueprint for the massive 1920s levee projects. Subscribe to Binary BC to see more lost architectural dreams brought to life. By 1936, the skyline has achieved its iconic form. Towers push up from the flat horizon, dominated by the Magnolia Building and its famous red Pegasus, a neon symbol that would define the Dallas brand for decades. The population has hit 260,000, and the banks are fueled by the massive infusion of East Texas oil money. The Texas Centennial Exposition is about to put Dallas on the national stage, showcasing it as a hub of the Southwest that refuses to stop growing, even in the depths of the Great Depression. From this high-altitude render, we see both the legacy of the 1872 grid and the soaring ambition of the future. Across the river, we find Lake Cliff, the centerpiece of Oak Cliff's bid to become the elite playground of the region. Developed in the 1880s around an artificial lake, it featured a casino, a pavilion, and even an early roller coaster. For a time, Oak Cliff was its own independent city, attracting wealthy residents who took the streetcar across the water to spend their Sundays in elegance. But by the 1920s, the park's energy began to fade, leaving the lake as a quiet remnant of a forgotten rivalry. To understand the city's power, we must look at its working guts in the West End circa 1902. This is where the actual processing happens. Railroad tracks cut through a dense cluster of brick warehouses and factories. Smoke rises from chimneys as cotton is graded and shipped to global markets. While the taller towers rise in the distance, the West End is pure function, the engine room of the North Texas economy. A century later, these industrial files would be recovered and repurposed into restaurants and shops, but in 1902, this neighborhood was the heartbeat of Texas trade. The MK&T station, known as the Katy, opens in 1905 with a Victorian design intended to project permanence and power, connecting Dallas to northern markets like St. Louis and Kansas City. The Katy line was a crucial data link for cattle and manufactured goods. We see travelers waiting on the platform, caught in a moment of transition before the construction of the massive Union Station. The Katy represented Dallas pushing its influence beyond the state lines, proving it could compete with any city in the nation. Safety also had to be professionalized. In 1901, the Dallas Fire Department moves into a dedicated two-story brick station. A horse stands outside, ready to pull the heavy fire wagons at a moment's notice. In a city built largely of wood, fire was the ultimate system crash. After devastating downtown blazes in the late 19th century, this investment in professional protection was a matter of survival. Within years, these horses would be replaced by motorized engines, but the foundation of public safety remained. Finally, we look at Lamar Street in 1902. This is the everyday interface of the city. Streetcar tracks run through the dirt, and awnings shade the sidewalks from the relentless Texas sun. Telephone poles and electrical wires crowd the view, documenting a city that is wiring itself for the 20th century. The street is unpaved, turning to mud in the rain and dust in the heat, a reminder that in 1902, Dallas was still half frontier and half metropolis. Through the lens of binary BC, we see that Dallas was built on sheer will and the arrival of the rail. It is a city that refused to be limited by its lack of a river or a mountain. If you want to see more urban legends and historical grids reconstructed by AI, subscribe to Binary BC. Drop a comment below and tell us which city's history we should process next.